Trafficking, we know, it is on the rise across the nation, across the world. And that's even with Epstein dead and his pimp behind bars now. And I'm not trying to make a joke or be flippant. We know they were doing that. Now if we could just catch all the scum that were actually paying for it. That's another story for another day though, right? Let's head to New Orleans. There was a big bust. I don't know if you heard about this one. U.S. Marshal Service reporting 5 missing teenage girls have been found. And here they actually busted the bad guys. 30 sex offenders arrested. Thank goodness. According to the U.S. Marshal Service, the 5 missing teens range from ages 14 to 17 years old. Can you imagine what those parents are feeling today with their children back home? Now, among the arrested sex offenders, one man was wanted for raping a 12-year-old. Another for raping a 14-year-old. Disgusting individuals. Speaking of human and sex trafficking, I want to fill you in about a nonprofit group that I just learned about recently. The group is called Saved in America. And the men behind this are on a mission to save children from sex and human trafficking. Saved in America is made up of all volunteers. There's a bunch of Navy SEALs, former law enforcement officers, and special operators from our military. And they've all come together with one goal: try to save every child they can. Since December of 2014, their volunteers have rescued more than 250 children nationwide. My hat's off to them. These volunteers help rescue the kids by assisting law enforcement and parents in trying to locate their missing kids. These are ones that are being trafficked. Maybe they're a runaway, they got into drugs, whatever it may be. They try to get them back to their family. The founder of this amazing organization is Joseph Travers, and he joins me in studio now to talk more about the charity Saved in America. And first and foremost, Joseph, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you a few weeks ago at a charity event here in Southern California to help benefit your amazing charity. And thanks for the book, by the way. I was just checking this out. Investigations of Missing and Exploited Children, the Gateway to Child Sex Trafficking, put out by your organization. Joseph, thank you so much, first and foremost, for what your team is doing. Let's take a step back to 2014 or maybe before that and tell me how you got involved in this. I know you used to be in law enforcement. Some of the operators I met the other night with you were former Navy SEAL guys. So how did this all come together?
Well, thank you, Dan, first of all, and thank you for coming to our charity function in November at the U.S. Grant. That was an amazing time, especially when the one survivor of the child we rescued got to come with her mother and receive a scholarship.
That was moving. That was very touching.
Yeah, absolutely. So Saved in America came about. I'm a pastor, and around 2009, I was looking for my next calling. And I read an article about a young girl named Brittany Drexel that was missing in New York. And I thought to myself, I hope Brittany didn't get caught up into what I saw happening while I worked in law enforcement in Los Angeles County, that the street gangs, the cartels, and the prison gangs had taken over the narcotics trafficking trade, but also were taking over the human trafficking trade, including child sex trafficking. So the next month, I read an article about United States Navy SEALs going overseas and rescuing children, and I got a hold of these guys, and I said, hey, do you know what's going on in this country? That American children are being enslaved by these street gangs in collusion with prison gangs and cartels? And they had no idea. So we got together, we formed Saved in America with 3 pillars. Number 1, we would never charge parents or law enforcement to assist them. Number 2, we would always be volunteers. And number 3, that we would only accept as our operators former special operators and current and retired law enforcement.
Okay, so I can't go on a mission then. I was just a combat journalist in the military. I wasn't an operator.
Well, you know,
I would really like to go.
I have some great news for you, Dan.
Yes.
We're going to start this new program, Operation Child Saved Not Sold, in San Diego County. All the missing girls, and it's on our website now, savedinamerica.org. All the missing children in San Diego County are up there. And we are now starting to locate them and work that up. So in 2 weeks, on the 15th, by the way, we're going to have our mobile command center down the street at San Diego Harley. You are more than welcome to come on down and hang out with the operators and go on a mission.
Oh, wow. Now, I want people to realize, too, this is a nationwide charity. You're based in San Diego, where OAN is based. That's how Joseph and I met, folks. But this is something they're doing nationwide. Now, I want to throw some stats out, Joseph, because I have a feeling You might even have some updated numbers, because with what we've seen in the last year under the Biden administration with the border issue, I'm sure these numbers have skyrocketed. But this is what my team found. An estimated 40 million people worldwide are victims of human trafficking. 50,000 of that 40 million come from the U.S. These are American kids that are trafficked. That's 50,000. I got to imagine that's way up over the last year, because we've heard about thousands being trafficked as they come across the border. And when I met you in November, you told me they get trafficked on the way up, and then once they're in this country, they're sold again and trafficked and put into a life of being like a sex slave or a human slave. So I got to think it's higher than 50,000 in 2021.
It absolutely is. Actually, Dan, it's more like 100,000. There was a study by Dr. Amy Carpenter from University of San Diego, and the study's in the back of the 4th edition book we just released.
Okay.
And what the study says is any one time, and this is according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there's 300,000 American children missing in this country. And according to that study, done in collaboration with the Department of Justice, that 1/3 of the children are being trafficked, which means as we speak, there's about 100,000 American children being sex trafficked in our country. But worse than that, when you speak about the border, the kids that are being taken over from the border, now we're talking about, these are the bad guys. The bad guys is that evil triad of the cartel, street gangs, and prison gangs. Well, the cartels are taking the kids over the border. So they're the same bad guys that are trafficking them. So we have an underbelly of children from south of the border, which is much larger than the 100,000 American children. And we have no idea actually how many, because they don't have a parent calling the police and saying, where's my child?
Ugh. I see too, Las Vegas. Many of our viewers, I'm sure, go there for a vacation. Las Vegas is one of the #1 hotspots for the kids to get trafficked in. That's one of the #1 cities. I also see that the average age, this scares the heck out of me. My daughter is 14, and this is why I wanted you on and why I take this so seriously and why I am so pissed off at this administration and how they've allowed an open border, and because that has created even more trafficked children. But the average age of a trafficked kid, folks, is 15 years old. Is that right, Joseph?
That is absolutely true. And if you don't mind, I'll take a couple seconds here. These are the children missing right now here in San Diego County. Right now, as we're here, there's a young girl named Maritza, 16, a young girl named Annie, 16, a young girl named Zania, 15, Lene, 16, Heather, 16, Janesia, 15, Angela, 17, Dayona, 16, and Iona, 16.
And Joseph, I see that in San Diego County alone, folks, and this is where he's based out of, why we keep bringing it up to 8,000 a year are trafficked out of this city alone. Of the 100,000 in this country, 8,000 of them from San Diego, because, folks, we're right by the border. And as Joseph was discussing with the gangs across the border and the gangs in America, this is I hate to say it, a great transition place for them to bring them over and then traffic them out into the country, correct?
That is absolutely correct. And I noticed you brought up Las Vegas. We're going for our 2nd annual fundraising event, but our 5th time we're going to go into Vegas and do a week-long operation in coordination with law enforcement in Las Vegas. And we look forward to that, because what happens here, even though it's so horrible and it's the second worst, San Diego, Las Vegas is 3 to 4 times worse than San Diego.
That's what I've heard. I used to do the news there for years, and we heard it all the time. And it's only gotten worse again, folks, in the last calendar year in 2021, even with COVID too, because people weren't speaking out as much. They were all hiding in their homes. So it got really bad in 2020. Then you attack on the open border. It has been just ridiculous. Joseph, I'm out of time, but I want folks to get involved and help out. There's so many organizations now that have popped up with these special operators that are out there helping. You're just one of the groups out there. And so if you can't help out right now, or you don't want to help Saved in America, Google online, check it out. There are a bunch of these organizations popping up with former cops and special operators like Joseph that are doing God's work and saving the kids. So Joseph, what's the website? How do we learn more to help you guys?
Go to savedinamerica.org, savedinamerica.org, and I'm glad you said that. Dan, if you are a police officer, retired police officer, or former special operator, go up to the volunteer tab and apply to become a volunteer reserve with Saved in America anywhere across the country. And also, This month, we're going to put up another way for people who don't have that type of background to volunteer and become a certified missing and exploited child volunteer. So look for that this month. That's the new thing for 2022. And Dan, again, I just can't thank you enough for getting this message across the country, because this is the new slavery here in this century, and this has just got to stop.
Let me tell you, between the human and sex trafficking and the opioid, let's talk about what a real epidemic or pandemic, between the opioids, the drugs, and these are the two major crises that this administration better wake the hell up and start tackling in this country. Because to me, screw COVID, stop worrying about Russia. These are two things right now in the country we better focus on right now. Joseph Travers, thank you so much. Really appreciate what you're doing for the kids.
Thank you, Dan.